Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Keep the Line Moving, the podcast designed to talk about leadership, life, and inspiration. I am your host, Chris Gargano, and for episode 48, the topic is innovation. How does a company, a league, an organization innovate? Well, they have a strong leadership culture, allowing people to fail, to experiment, and to succeed. Our guest, Steve Hellmuth, will be inducted into the Sports Broadcasting Hall of Fame this month. And here's a little excerpt from an article written by Sports Video Group that I will share with you about Steve. In a career spanning nearly 45 years, Hellmuth enjoyed working on a mix of production, live events, systems design, and technology. He recently retired from his role as NBA Executive Vice President, Operations and Technology, in which he developed statistical systems, directed facility construction, and created digital media archives. Before joining the NBA, he spent 2 years as Senior Vice President and General Manager of Major League Baseball Productions, supervising the programming and production departments. He also served as SVG Chairman. Throughout this conversation, we will talk about the relationships he cultivated throughout those 45 years. He was a center in high school. We will talk about how his team was really good. You've got to hear this. And we will discuss his relationship with both David Stern and Adam Silver. The conversation begins now with Hall of Famer Steve Hellmuth. All right, Steve, it's great to see you. Congratulations on a great 45-year career. I know you're still doing a bunch of other projects and such, but how does it feel to be retired from the NBA in a glorious career?
It feels great because I think I've left behind a group of individuals that were ready to take up the task of continuing to lead the NBA and keep the NBA being a technological leader. So I'm focusing on my grandkids, my fitness, and essentially what my goal is now is to be the fittest 70-year-old in the world. So I'm on the progress. In fact, yesterday I had my ideal day, around 18 and body surfing. It's a great combo.
Fantastic. Focusing on family, fitness, and fun. I just love that. That's just Congratulations to you. But as you reflect now, because Steve, a lot of times in life, we go through an experience and then we have the ability to look back on it. And, as Steve Jobs once said, you connect all the dots. Have you done that? Have you looked back on your NBA career and your career in totality and connected all those dots in understanding and appreciating your journey?
I think I have. I mean, things dawn on you as time goes on, but I have pieced it all together and I kind of understand, how I got to where I am. I mean, actually, to tell you the truth, it started with sports. So I was the captain of a football team that never lost a game. I actually was 40-0 in high school. We were number one in the city of Washington in 1971. That experience, the experience of being a part of a team, a winning team, but also understanding that we could both outthink and outwork our opponents, right? Which is what I tell young people. I always say, okay, you may get the opportunity to outthink people. You may have great ideas, but just do the work first. Give yourself a chance to have a lot of luck and to see a lot of opportunity by applying yourself very well. So it's kind of been the theme of my whole career was set when I was in high school playing the offensive line, because I was the center and I would call the blocking on the offensive line and communicate up and down the line. It was us in the trenches looking at what's ahead of us and innovating and figuring out what to do.
All right. So you're undefeated in high school. You're the center. And I had visuals there of Mike Webster of the Steelers, Mike Stevenson, or Jim Otto of the Raiders. I just saw you there. So you're a high school student. Going back to the theme of connecting the dots, when did you start to realize that experience of hard work and to call the plays as well as the QB or the coach from the sideline, when did you realize that was a foundational element to your leadership as you started progressing in your career?
It's interesting, but I really recognized it when I was at the NBA and I started running technology. But it actually started with my first job at NBC Sports in 1979. So we had this problem. This is going to really date me, but we had this real problem in 1982 with the highlight system, and that we couldn't get the highlights copy to print out fast enough for Bob Costas so we could rip and read the highlights after we kind of assembled the plays. So I actually just started researching, found the first laser jet printer that was ever made, bought it, and I had it shipped to me. And it ended up in my office. The IT department disowned me because I had done this on my own. And I called up the broadcast engineers. I said, guys, you got to help me with this. So we came and we ran the cables between the ENG floor at 30 Rock, 4 up to 6 where the studio was. And we actually put the whole thing together. And we sat there and watched the paper come out and go, fit, fit, fit. And it was the fact that I was able to quickly assemble that team. But in terms of what I did, it really what I did in high school on that team is reflective of my whole career. I was really on the offensive line, i.e., I designed the networks, I designed the statistical systems, the metadata. I took care of a lot of enormously complex, difficult systems so that the creative people could function efficiently, clearly, and well. That's exactly why, the NBA.com app has done as well as it has. And occasionally I would call plays right in the middle of that. Like at one point, like I called a play to create the mobile view, right? Which is something that's inside the NBA app, which is a tighter view of the game, based on people watching on mobile as opposed to people watching on, 75-inch TV sets. So there's plays that I called along the way that really I was allowed to do that empowered me.
But not only allowed to do, deserved to do, and probably garnered the trust of those that were your bosses. As you explain these stories about getting the highlights quickly from floor 4 up to floor 6 to Costas so he can read them appropriately in the appropriate amount of time, what I'm seeing and observing in you is a quiet confidence to do so. Steve, on this podcast, we have people that have had Super Bowls all the way down to folks just getting started in their careers and everyone in between. And a common theme we talk about is one's relationship as a leader to their ego. If I may, you seem to have a wonderful relationship with where you were in the overall plan of NBA entertainment and taking the initiative to solve that for Bob, right? The creative on that side, right? As a broadcaster is a great story. How did you do that for other people when you became a leader? And you said something interesting. You've said so many things interesting, but you felt comfortable retiring because those that you are handing the reins to, per se, are ready. So tell me about the cultivation of talent that you've done over the years, because I find it very interesting.
Yeah, what I kind of learned actually a lot from observing NBA coaches is that you can push people to achieve things, but as a coach, you have to understand that human beings are never just status quo. They're always going up or going down. They're always in a cycle. So you have to allow your employees, the people that work for you, to cycle. You have to allow for them to have some off days, some days where things aren't that impressing or important. You have to let them slip a few things and just ignore them and not say anything about it. In other words, you can't be hammering away all the time, because what you got to be ready for when you're launching an app, like I did when I ran the website, for the NBA, when you're building to that championship game, i.e. you're getting ready to publish, that's when you need them with you, right? You need to have given them a dip so they can rise with you and focus through the struggle, through the cattle drive that is launching any major new piece of technology. So that's a lot of what I kind of learned, is to kind of observe the people that work for me and make sure that, like a coach or like leading an orchestra, that you are managing them correctly so that they can put their best selves to work every day.
Did you let them know you were doing that? Or was that
Um,
something that you just did naturally and kind of gave them a little wink maybe once in a while, knowing that they're not necessarily, as you said, having the greatest day?
well, I didn't really let them know that, but the great thing about the people that work for me is that they saw also how hard I worked. So they never wanted to let me fail, right? So the reason I'm in the Hall of Fame is because of all the people that ever worked with me or for me or helped me, they put me in the Hall of Fame. I didn't get to the Hall of Fame on my own, obviously.
So you said that everybody was contributing to your journey to get to the Sports Broadcasting Hall of Fame, which is
Absolutely.
tremendous. So when you look at folks that led you, whether that was David Stern or Adam Silver or anyone in between, what were the attributes that they showed you that you incorporated into your leadership style? But let's give them credit, right? Because they were part of your journey. What were those individuals like making up a Hall of Fame career that is your own?
So David Stern, needless to say, was one of the more unique individuals that ever walked the face of the planet, and I frequently miss him. I miss talking to him, and I greatly, regret the day that I heard that he had the aneurysm. In fact, he had the aneurysm the night before he and I were supposed to go out to lunch the next day. It was so sad, and he had so much to contribute still. But David was amazing because he could empower you in ways that were just impossible in any normal corporate structure, right? Because once he said, Hellmuth, fix the replay system. The referees can't make the judgment correctly with that stupid light bulb. I actually just went back to my office for a summer and I started playing with LED strips. And I started, moving them back and forth. And I eventually, at that point, I was working for Adam. So I go into Adam and I say, it would look fine if I just had the lights on the top and the bottom of the backboard, but it would look so much cooler if it went all the way around. And Adam goes, don't even mention top and bottom. It goes all the way around, Steve. That's it. So I had a combination of the two of them working on that together. But David, as I think as Rick Welts famously said, he could take you higher than high and lower than low. But I'll never forget a phone call that I got from him in the middle of making the NBA statistical system work. So I was actually running it in parallel with the existing Statman system, which was a disaster. Every day I would do a phone call that lasted 2 to 3 hours just to go through everything that happened with the code, everything that happened with the input, how we're going to make it better because the next year it was going to go live. In the middle of it, David called me and he goes, Hellmuth, I know how difficult this is and how hard you're working. I want to thank you very much. I know it's important to the NBA. So it was really just amazing. So he could really spur you on and pick you up, And similarly, Adam was very dedicated, very understanding of the importance of broadcasting as the kind of basis for everything digital, right? You don't start out with a good telecast. What do you got? Nothing, right? Unless you start out with great camera work, great lenses, great producers, directors, talent. Unless everybody is working correctly there, you don't get anything downstream. I mean, downstream is just downstream. So, but mostly Adam was enormously supportive of me, of the development of the replay center. He helped make the replay center as transparent as it is. And he also understood the importance of something that I left behind, which is the network of the NBA, which we call High Speed Arena Network, where I started this years and years ago. But because I was in the trenches again, in effect, running the offensive line, I knew the importance of video with enormously low latency, 1 to 2 frames, with the shot clock and the game clock associated with it, indexed to stats, right? There's your package, right? If you do that at the venue and do it correctly, then all the downstream digital products and everything related to it can be built, right? Creative people can do things. And that's the stuff that you see in the NBA app today, right? That is the NBA app. Now, it was something that Adam enabled me to do. He led me to do it, and he understood the importance of it. I mean, other leagues don't have that kind of support from the top, right? So they're left kind of scrapping around with different broadcasters and different systems and different networks. They're not going to get there. It's not going to work.
Let me ask you this. So as you've articulated, the NBA is extremely innovative in content broadcasting and how it is branded, right? Globally, it's a global sport.
Right.
But with that innovation in your role, overseeing technology and the complexities of your role, the intricate details, how were you able to communicate latency or coax cables, things of that nature in your world to those that perhaps, were different? It's about listen, we're going to innovate here. You might not, be in the trenches with me, but you need to trust me? Or how did that conversation go when you were forwarding the website or forwarding, a deal with Turner or some of your other partners? How did you communicate effectively to get the job done?
So one of the keys to the thing was when I was designing the stat system, and we're going way back to, 1998 for this, I was able to communicate to David and Adam. I said, we want to be the first sport to have their statistics live on the internet. So it was just a simple expression to them of, we could be the first to be there, and it enhances and it values everything else, because they put me in a chair, David and then Adam put me in a chair where I could see all the way around the organization and understood kind of what everybody needed. So the NBA was able to have a single archive, right? High quality archive, always the best quality video that we possibly could collect. Really, Chris, this is what really propelled, the NBA's kind of digital incarnation, right? Because you need those good bones, right, to make this happen. Make no mistake about it, Chris, I'm part salesman, right? So in fact, some of the engineers would often look at me and go, after we finish putting together a plan, they're my offensive linemen, right? If we put together a plan, they go, Steve, are you going to go get the money and bring it back so we can do this? And I'd say, don't worry, I'll be in the budget meeting. I'll get it done, because I was the front man, right? I was the mouthpiece, right? And that was part of my job, clearly identified by them and by me, was to get in front of the various committees at the NBA and the owners, occasionally, at the Board of Governors meetings, and sell something in, right? And sell a vision, right? Which I did, frankly, with the way that all good things get sold in, with storytelling, right? You have to give people a story that they can walk away with.
So you just hit on something there. So it's not only storytelling to get the initiative passed, but it's also storytelling when someone's looking at you, a junior executive or somebody on your team, that you see potential and you have to tell them or allow them to cultivate their own story. So how would you work with mentoring people and making sure that now that you've retired, somebody can come in and do a great job at the NBA?
I think the effort that we all made together, sitting shoulder to shoulder in those rooms, with the attitude that we were never going to fail, right? That we were always going to get it done. There was never, ever a sense of any give up, and I know that is not unique to the NBA. I know the guys at the NFL and the NHL and MLB and everybody feels the same way. But I guess I'd just say that we had the reins clearly in our hands, right, in order to get these things done, and that made it that much more efficient and that much more possible to get things done in a short time frame, and to deliver, excellence. And then the other great thing I loved about being there is owning the systems too. So I produced a number of things at the NBA. I've also worn production hat, but at the end of the day, what I really liked to do was build systems, be it replay systems, statistical systems, archive systems, because I could go back and visit my systems and improve them and make them better, right? I just was I'm not necessarily a technology person, I'm a systems person. So
what about people systems? Did you see the world that way too during your leadership time?
On the people side, what I tried to do is foster an environment in which anybody could speak, anybody could have an idea. And that in speaking up and talking to each other, we could pick up ideas that were not necessarily appropriate, but there was a kernel of an idea inside the idea that could be paired with another idea, with another thought that somebody had across the hallway, with a conversation that I had, while I was having coffee that morning, that we could put it all together and gradually build something. So the idea being that I never wanted anybody to ever self-censor, right? And the fact that I was able to promote that environment in a group, again, in which I had the television engineers, the broadcast engineers, code writers, the folks doing web development, and the IT department, all under one roof, and all dedicated to the game of the NBA. the fact that I could make those people all bump into each other, talk to each other, and exchange ideas was really what made it successful.
So let me ask you this, and something you made reference to earlier. Now in your retirement, you've only been in retirement for a short while now, but you had a great day yesterday. You played golf, you've body surfed, you're
Yeah.
doing all this, right? And you've got a smile on your face, and I'm sure all the listeners couldn't be more happy for you, and me too. So I'll tell you this. My question to you is this. So to approach things and not allowing people to be censored, like you said, that takes energy and enthusiasm and people in seeing that you're enjoying yourself as well so they can really do great work. So how did you garner energy and enthusiasm for 45 years at both Major League Baseball and then into the NBA to allow people to express themselves and innovate and push the limits?
Wow, Chris, I guess it's just that I was always fascinated, from my very first boss who actually got this philosophy. One of my very first bosses was Teddy Nathanson, the great NFL director. And the idea that you could try things and fail and move on, right? That there was no penalty for failure. So I'll give you a good example of this. We actually created a lab at the NBA, with the support of Adam for innovation called the Summer League, right? So in the Summer League, we tried the Sky Cam, the Rail Cam. We tried new positions for the slash cameras. I developed the shot clocks there as they're currently designed, right? I added tents to the shot clocks. All these things were all done at the Summer League. Now, a lot of these things that we tried there weren't even possible, couldn't even necessarily happen inside of an NBA venue because of the seating requirements for the fans. But we came to the bubble. They said, what are we going to do in the bubble? And I said, I've already worked with Eddie Akuno, of ESPN, their chief technical person, and Chris Brown, the chief technical person at Warner Brothers Discovery now, TNT. I already know. Just give me a piece of paper. I can show you what we're going to do, right? And I knew they were 100% with me. And all the things that we tried and tested, failed, fell over on, all of a sudden we were doing everything. And without that Summer League, without having a place to fail, right, where if something didn't work, there wasn't somebody on a headset screaming, why isn't it working, right? But that's really what made it work, because broadcast television tends to be a very conservative space because they're all worried so much about getting the game on the air cleanly. It's a difficult place to innovate, but you need to find ways to innovate on the side, get your openings, and be willing to move forward without consequence.
Before we get to the All-Star round, one more for you. What does it mean to be going into the Sports Broadcasting Hall of Fame? How does that hit your heart?
Well, first of all, I would say that it's wonderful to be going into a Hall of Fame, which was really that I helped develop, but it really is the work of Ken Agard. And it's wonderful to know that everybody that's sitting at that event, 90% of the money goes to charity. Larry, 90 cents on the dollar, because the Sports Video Group supports the dinner and pays for all the expenses associated with the dinner. So the only thing we're left with some accounting charges. So it's great not to be standing up and going into a Hall of Fame that's profiting somebody else in some other way. This is strictly for charity. So that's number one. Number two, it's just a great group that I'm going in with. I mean, between Val Ackerman and Tom Fletcher and Ernie Johnson. I certainly won't try to write a poem, although I've been known to write some poetry, but I'm not going to try to face down Ernie Johnson. If you've ever seen him, he can really write a great poem. Jeff Zachary, and then Tony Petitti. So that's a great group. But overall, I'm thrilled to be joining the group, and I couldn't be happier with the class that I'm going into. And I really admire the organization that I'm joining. So I'm really, really happy about it all the way.
Have you written the speech yet?
No, I haven't written the speech. I'm starting to think about it. It's my second Hall of Fame. My first one was my high school Hall of Fame. So I went in the first round. So it's my second Hall of Fame, I must mention.
Here we go. All-Star moments. 6 questions, my friend.
Okay.
Rapid fire. Looking back on your career, how did you deal with adversity?
For whatever reason, I had a knack for grace under pressure. When things got hot, I tend to calm down, right? And look and get a little more hardened and a little clearer. I can really focus in tight, difficult moments. And hopefully that's been the case for my career, and I provided some leadership there.
2, how do you give yourself fuel?
I have been and I am a dedicated person in the gym. So my fuel is working out, 5 to 6 days a week.
3, what does never give up mean to you?
Never give up means that I would never give up on the people that were in the room with me, right? My team, that they knew that no matter what happened, I would be behind them, that I would be with them, supporting them. They're ready to push them forward.
4, what is the value of collaboration?
The value of collaboration is the ability to exchange ideas that are half-baked, that they can get incorporated into something and get more fully baked. It's all about the virtuous circle of listening to each other.
When you hire someone, what do you look for in an ideal candidate?
I look for intelligence and some leadership qualities and ability to grow beyond the job I'm hiring them for.
6, last one. Describe yourself as a leader in one sentence.
I led people with dedication and trust, and as a result, they never wanted to let me down.
Steve, this has been great. This is tremendous.
Great.
Congratulations on the Sports Broadcasting Hall of Fame.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.
And we thank Steve very much for being on the show. Here are my takeaways from this conversation. Number 1, grace under pressure. I am thrilled that Steve said that and how he articulated that when things got chaotic around him, he got more calm and centered and could focus and listen to the folks around him, and they problem solved and probably were still able to innovate even when everything was chaotic. And that great story about getting Bob Costas the highlights, purchasing that laser printer in the early 80s and figuring out a way to be timely with the highlights. And lastly, Steve's loyalty to the folks that reported to him and always getting their back. I appreciated that Steve shared those stories with us. Hope you enjoyed this episode very much, everybody. And finally, before we go, congratulations to all of the Sports Broadcasting 2023 Hall of Fame inductees. Take care, everybody. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time on Keep the Line Moving. Every week, you hear guests on this podcast talk about some of their biggest leadership challenges. As a leader, you want to make an impact on those you lead and reach your organization's goals, while also optimizing your time management. Wherever you are in your leadership journey, we could all use some help. This is what we focus on with our group and individual coaching services. To book a call or get more information, email me directly at chrisg@garganoleadership.com or visit our website at garganoleadership.com. For our podcast and video producer, Jack Radutsky, and our marketing coordinator, Savin Narwal, have a great week, everybody.